Hi, and welcome to DTV. My name is Millie Hughes. I'm an Education Outreach Liaison at Doylestown Health, and joining me today is Debbie Davis, a registered dietitian and one of our outpatient dietitians at the hospital. Hi, Debbie, how are you?
I'm well, Millie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Would you mind telling us just a little bit about yourself, your role at the hospital, how long you've been there and in the field?
Sure. So I've been a registered dietitian for 17 years, and for the past 8 years, I have been an outpatient nutritionist at Doylestown Hospital. And Doylestown Hospital actually has 3 registered dietitians, and we can see patients for all kinds of conditions, including diabetes, heart disease, cancer, liver and kidney diseases, and even weight loss and digestive issues.
Wow, you guys are tackling a lot over there in that department,
We
aren't you?
do, yes.
So we're going to get into healthy holiday foods and a table. But first, what's the thing you love most about what you do?
I love that I can help people to begin to feel better by making healthy diet choices.
That's great. I'm sure the people that you're helping love that too.
I hope so.
So, like I said, today we're talking about how to make healthy or healthful holiday meal choices. So, Debbie, can you tell us what makes up a balanced meal? Are there certain components or specific foods that should be included in general for a balanced meal?
Sure. So when anyone asks me that question, I love to refer to Harvard University's healthy eating plate that their School of Public Health put out a few years ago. So if you can see here looking at the plate, it is, a small dinner plate, so that makes it more understandable for us. In the upper right-hand corner, we have whole grains, and that takes up about a quarter or 25% of your plate. Then below that are healthy proteins. Again, you can see about a quarter of the healthy proteins are on your plate. And then fruits and vegetables are to the left, and that is a half of your plate. So half your plate should be fruits and vegetables, a quarter or 25% whole grains, and round that out with about 25% or a quarter healthy proteins. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see some healthy fats. So what they are just those in moderation. So healthy fats, and then we can see here water is the primary drink that one should be drinking.
So, you mentioned that whole grain should be 25% of our healthy plate. So, what are some parameters for choosing those grains?
So first, let me start with talking about giving you some good examples of what's a whole grain. So that would include whole grain pastas, brown rice, your whole grain breads, crackers, cereals. You can see barley is on the list, oats, oatmeal, popcorn, bulgur, buckwheat, millet, barley, quinoa, and corn. So they are some of the more known whole grains up there. And the recommendation is that about half of our grains should be whole. And why are whole grains so important? So they've done studies. They looked at a meta-analysis of almost 800,000 people, and they found that those folks who have at least 2 servings daily of whole grains have a 22% lower rate of overall mortality. It reduces their risk of cardiovascular mortality by 23%, and then also cancer death risk is lower by 20%. So in addition to that, we know that whole grains help control blood sugar, so they're good to help with diabetes and, of course, digestive health. So I would love to take a closer look at what a whole grain is and why it is so important for including in our diet. So if you can see here on the left-hand side, I have a whole grain, and the outer edge of it is called the bran. And that's predominantly where the fiber is, but there's also some B vitamins, some minerals, a little bit of healthy fats. But predominantly that's where the fiber is. And in the very middle of this whole grain is something called the germ. And the germ is the seed of the plant, and it is the powerhouse of nutrition. It is loaded with antioxidants, including vitamin E, again, more B vitamins, and healthy fats. And in the middle, the white part, that's the endosperm. That is where the carbohydrates mostly are, a little bit of protein, and that's really where the calories are. So if you look at the white grain on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the bran was removed from the grain. So when we're looking at a piece of white bread or white pasta, there's very little fiber because most of that's been removed. And then that middle germ was removed also. So you're taking out all of those antioxidants that are so important to good health. Now, the government has a mandatory fortification process where they will put some of the B vitamins back into the white grain to help with population health, but we're still missing a lot of the good nutrition that is in that whole grain. And so how do you know a product is a whole grain? So the first word should say whole. So here's an ingredient list for a whole grain bread. You can see the first word says whole grain wheat. Here's another example. It's hard to see it here, but it's oatmeal and it's whole grain oats. So that's one way. And there is a voluntary program where it looks like a postage stamp is on the product. And if the product is 100% all whole grain, that will be the symbol you'll see on it. If there is at least 50% of the grains are whole, then so over the majority of the grains in the product are whole, then you'll see that stamp. And then they have just a symbol for whole grain, meaning that there are adequate whole grains in there, but there is more enriched or fortified grains that make up the majority of the product.
So you're saying that we can have pasta and bread and all those good things in moderation, of course, but that whole grains are definitely a better choice than
Right,
the
whole
white.
grains are better, and at least half of your intake every day should be whole grains of all grains.
Okay. So the other thing on that plate, or the second thing that you mentioned, was protein. Are there certain protein sources that are better than others?
Great question. Yeah, if you recall, we call that the healthy proteins. So healthy proteins would include stuff like legumes and beans, turkey, poultry, right? This time of year, Thanksgiving, a lot of us have turkey. We have soy, so that would include both tofu. It also would include soy nuts and edamame. Seafood is a great source of healthy protein. We also have Greek yogurt, eggs, quinoa, and nuts and seeds. So these are all great sources of healthy proteins. So when you're looking at a protein, you want to look at the package that it comes in, so what kind of fats are with that protein? Are there extra flavorings that are added? So with healthy proteins, we have mostly lean fats or plant-based fats, whereas unhealthy proteins such as red meat is going to have a lot of saturated fats and probably a lot of sodium. So, and protein is just so important for most of what our body does. And so we want to choose mostly healthy protein choices. And there, as I mentioned, like the unhealthy fats. So red meat is one that we want to limit. And we want to try and avoid processed meats. So processed meats would include bacon, sausage, lunch meat, hot dogs, that type of thing. And we know that eating too much of those puts us at greater risk for colorectal cancer. There was a recent study done that said for every 50 grams, and that's a little less than 2 ounces, and they used a hot dog or ham, but it could be any type of lunch meat. For every less than 2 ounces eaten daily, it raises our risk of colorectal cancer by 16%.
Wow,
It's a lot.
that is a lot.
Yeah.
That's shocking, actually.
I agree, yeah. So you really want to try and avoid those meats as much as possible.
And so you said it should be about a quarter of our plate, but that actual amount of protein will be different per person based on age, height, weight, gender even, or
Yes, because our calorie needs are different, whether we're female or male. There is some changes in our calorie intake just because men typically have more muscle on them and are weigh more, so that will have an impact. As we get a little bit older, we lose muscle mass, so it's important as we age that we make sure we get adequate protein to sustain the muscle that we do have and hopefully, keep us strong as we age.
absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about fruits and vegetables.
Fruits, right. So they were half of our plate, right? So fruits and vegetables, they are just so good for us, and we all know this, or we've all heard it, I should say. They are loaded with vitamins and minerals, lots of fiber in them. They're low in calories, so that helps with people who are trying to manage a healthy weight. They're low fat, they're low sodium, and they protect against disease. So really important for us. So again, when you look at all these different benefits of these fruits and veggies, you want to think, well, why? Because they work together to help keep us healthy. And the recommendations are for 6 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is like, what is a serving? So a serving would be a cup of a raw veggie or like leafy greens. So the size of a tennis ball or a fist. Or a half a cup of cooked vegetables. So basically like a handful, that's 1 serving. Or if you're talking about fruits, like mostly a medium-sized fruit or like a third to a half a cup of a fruit juice would be a serving. So I'm sure there's lots of people out there who think I can never get 6 servings of fruits and vegetables in a day. That does sound like a lot. So I have an easy rule to help everyone get their fruits and vegetables in every day. It's the 1-2-3 rule. So 1 is 1 serving at breakfast. So here I have a bowl of oatmeal. That actually might be 2 servings of fruits there, but make sure we get some. If we're having eggs, we want to make sure that there's some vegetables in with our eggs. 2 servings at lunch. So if you're having like a tuna fish sandwich, you would want to have a side salad with that to get in 2 servings at lunch. And then of course, dinner would be 3 servings at dinner. So that would be a plate that, again, half of it would be your vegetables or fruits and vegetables to help meet your needs. And color is really important. The color represents different antioxidants. And the colors, the different antioxidants, these chemicals that are in these plants really work together like synergistically to kind of help promote good health. So the more colorful your plate is, the more health you're going to be getting from your fruits and veggies.
That's great. So I hear a lot of people talking about, buying organic fruits and vegetables. Am I getting just as much nutrition even if I don't buy organic fruits and vegetables or produce in general?
So the most important thing you want to consider is getting your 6 servings of fruits and vegetables in every day. So that's the most important thing. If you choose to buy organic, and there's definitely arguments out there by the organic industry that would say that it is better for us, because there is a lot of pesticides in these conventional produce. And the body really doesn't get rid of those pesticides very well, so they can kind of accumulate. But there really are no studies that are kind of implicating that conventional produce with the small amounts of pesticides that you may ingest really have any negative effect on our health. So I think it's a personal decision, but most importantly, make sure you get in your 6 servings.
Okay. One of the next things on that plate was healthy fats.
Right.
What does that look like?
So healthy fats are fats that come from a plant. So they are anti-inflammatory. So they would include oils that are liquid at room temperature, like olive oil, avocado oil, canola oil. It would also include the fats that are in fish and nuts and seeds. Eggs to a small degree, and avocado is a great source of healthy fats. So in contrast, we have fats that are maybe not so healthy for us, and they would come from animal products. So butter or like a fatty piece of beef would be what we would consider an unhealthy fat. And those are inflammatory versus our healthy fats that come from plants that are anti-inflammatory. So it's really important to get enough fats because our bodies need fat to be healthy, but we want to choose the healthier fats.
Okay.
So I have a great example of a healthy Thanksgiving plate, right? Since we've now gone over the 4 major food groups there. So you can see here in the very middle of the plate, we have some stuffing, and that's a whole grain stuffing. So that's about 1/4 of your plate. The turkey's about a quarter of a plate, and again, that's a lean protein. And then about half that plate is fruits and vegetables, and that is a very healthy, delicious looking Thanksgiving plate.
That does look delicious. It's making me excited for Thanksgiving Day. So one thing that we didn't talk about, and I also don't see it on this Thanksgiving plate, is dairy products. I feel like people either are all about dairy and there's some healthy fat in dairy too, um, or they don't want to eat it at all. So what can you tell us about how to choose the right dairy products? Are there some that are more nutrient dense?
So I will first say that there is definitely disagreement within the health world regarding the benefits of dairy. But dairy has a lot of good nutrition. It's a good source of protein. Dairy is a great source of calcium, a good source of vitamin D, and some B vitamins. So we definitely know that it has a lot of good nutrition, whether it be a full fat dairy or a low fat or a no fat dairy. However, you can also get those nutrients in other foods other than dairy. So, even calcium, with some effort, you can really get meet your calcium needs without having dairy. So, like I said, there really is confusion right now, but I found this graph, which I love. I think it really kind of like explains what's the healthiest way to approach this. So 1 to 2 servings daily of like yogurt, your fermented dairy that helps with gut bacteria and keeping that GI tract healthy. That also includes some cultured cottage cheese and some aged cheeses. So 1 to 2 servings daily of those. And then you can see as the graph gets into the yellow and the orange, it's 0 to 1 servings daily of milk and cheeses that are not aged very long, and cream, those types of things, sour cream. And then to the far right are those servings which you really want to not have very often. It says less than 1 serving daily. So they're more like a treat, like chocolate milk or butter you want to try and limit, ice cream, frozen yogurts, that type of thing.
That's great. It's good to see that chart and to be able to kind of segment them out.
Right, and decide how you want to approach your dairy intake.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in general, is there a way of eating that you recommend over others? Is it more about the food itself or not so much? And is it about a general diet and types of food that you eat?
Good question. So most of the folks have heard of the Mediterranean diet, and there's a reason we talk a lot about the Mediterranean diet. Study after study after study has really shown that those people who follow a Mediterranean diet have lower risk of cardiovascular disease, better aging, just less diabetes, healthier weight. So there is a reason why. So if we kind of look at this, the Mediterranean diet, it's a pyramid. And at the second to the bottom, you'll see most of those healthy foods that we just spoke of, like the fruits and vegetables are there, nuts and seeds are there, like herbs and spices are there, whole grains, beans, legumes. And so all of those are part of the base of that whole grain. And that's what we want of the pyramid. That's what we want our diet to be, mostly these healthy foods. And then as you move up the pyramid, like our healthy sources of protein, other than the beans and nuts, would be fish and seafood. So the recommendation is about 2 to 3 servings a week of those. And then also you go up a little bit further and you'll see like eggs and lean proteins and yogurts and kefir. So those things can round out and help us to make our protein needs, but maybe in lesser quantities than our fish and seafood. And then at the very top, you'll see meat and sweet. So there are things that we want to really choose and eat sparingly. So maybe red meat is, once a week, if even that. That's what the Mediterranean diet has. And then you'll see water again is the primary drink. And then at the very bottom, there's an emphasis on activity and, doing things that you love to do. But They did a nurses study, health study, and they found that women who followed a Mediterranean diet were 46% more likely to age healthy, meaning like be strong, be vital, and to have less cognitive decline as they age. So there's a lot of good science behind the importance of the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, that alone is a great reason to try to stick to a diet like that.
Exactly.
This looks great. I love all the foods on that pyramid. But how can it be sustained over a long period of time? How can it be a lifestyle change instead of, oh, I'm just going to eat this way for a short amount of time to
Right,
accomplish something?
right. I am a big believer in small changes over time really do add up to big health changes. So all the things that we spoke about today. So if you just really think about those different, topics that we covered, like you think, well, what am I lacking in? Where am I not doing such a great job? Well, I'll focus on that. And you focus on just that particular goal until that becomes a part of your regular diet, your regular healthy eating. And then you can move on to a next goal because, again, it's all those tiny little changes over time that for most of us really end up getting great health benefits from.
Okay, starting small.
Exactly. And not being overwhelmed by, changes that you need to make. Just start small and steady.
Right. Are there tips or tricks that you have that can make it a little bit easier to start with those small steps or to incorporate more nutritious foods into our diets?
So I'm going to go, I'm going to discuss this in light of the holidays coming up here. So when I think about the holidays, I think of like the big events, right? There's Thanksgiving and then probably holiday parties and then maybe New Year's, that type of thing. So there are big events, but in between those big events, it's mostly, average days where we're trying to get extra things done. We are, shopping, we are wrapping, we are planning parties, we are doing all the things that are involved in getting us ready for those big events. So those are the days where you really want to try and stay healthy and just focus on making good choices. So lots of fruits and vegetables. Try and get some yogurt in every day because, again, that's good for our gut health. Popcorn. Popcorn is a great healthy whole grain. Hard-boiled eggs, an easy protein when you're on the go because a lot of times we're running here and there. We don't plan our dinners. Nuts and nut butter such as peanut butter, almond butter, hummus, and whole grain crackers. They're just a few examples of things that you want to keep in your house so that when you are really feeling depleted, instead of going for, a cookie, you can grab something healthy, and that's going to sustain you for a long time. But then comes the actual big day. So if you're someone who is actually hosting an event, it's you want to serve your traditional foods, but you can actually, first of all, make them a little healthier. So a couple tips that I'll give you that I don't even think your guests would even notice. So if you're making mashed potatoes, replace some of the butter and cream with some low sodium chicken broth. If you're making like a cheesy dish or dessert, plain yogurt works great in place of sour cream or regular cream. It really does. Most people would never notice the difference. Your dishes that are very buttery, why don't you replace some of the butter with those plant-based olive oils, which are anti-inflammatory, that are good for your heart. And I know, again, like we have our traditional dishes that everyone expects to see, but it's okay to offer a new, healthier side dish, maybe something that has whole grains in it, or if you're making your stuffing, replace the white bread that you might use in a bread stuffing with a whole grain bread. Reduce cheese in a recipe by half. Someone gave me a tip long ago is like if you have a casserole that there's cheese throughout it and then there's cheese on top, like don't cut back on the cheese on top because visually that looks like very cheesy and that's what people want. But in the middle of it, that's where you want to like cut the cheese by significant amounts. So people aren't really going to notice their eye. They're going to eat with their eyes and they're going to see all that bubbly cheese and think that it's what they normally expect. And then just maybe add a steamed veggie to your side holiday menu, something that you maybe haven't done in the past. Then when it comes to baking, right, that's another thing that we do a lot of over the holidays. It's very easy to use 25 to 50% less sugar in a recipe and not notice a difference. So I tell people, like, start out with making your favorite traditional recipes and cut the sugar by about a quarter. So you're not cutting a lot out. You probably won't notice a difference. And then maybe the next time you make it, you could maybe cut it back a little bit more. Any more than 50%, like, then you're going to change the texture of the food, but you can safely cut up to half of the sugar in a recipe. And then, of course, you want to add like other flavorings to it, such as, cinnamon, ginger, clover, allspice, or extracts such as vanilla or almond. So if you have a dessert that's like a crumble topping, just really cut down the topping, on top of the dessert. Single pie crust, like a pumpkin pie, is going to be better than a double crusted blueberry pie or something like that when it comes to like calories. And then when you're baking, things like unsweetened applesauce, actually mashed bananas, mashed avocado works great in a lot of chocolate recipes. You're replacing the butter with this healthy fat, and even prunes puree works really well in desserts too. So then lastly, like my bit of advice here is, here's our friend Buddy the Elf. So instead of Buddy the Elf, who kind of like just ate indiscriminately all those sugary and, white pastas or whatever, like start to think about what's the good, what's the bad, and what is just not worth it. So we can definitely eat in moderation at the holidays. Like everything should be part of that. But what you want to do is you want to decide what foods are worth it for you. If you love, a pumpkin pie that your Aunt Sally bakes every year, then of course you should have that piece of pumpkin pie. And if someone else brings like cookies that are from the bakery down the street or brings a box of donuts, well, you could eat that donut in July. So maybe it's not worth to eat that, and save your choices for the things that really mean a lot to you and that you only get that certain time of year. And then not have any guilt about it. And then let's say you do overeat. We all tend to overindulge from time to time. Pay attention to how you feel afterwards, maybe a few hours afterwards or maybe the next day. Guaranteed that most of us don't feel very well if we've overindulged. And remember that feeling. Really try and remember how you felt. So the next time it comes around, you maybe would cut back on your portions because you would say, that was just not worth it. But throughout this all, you're going to make good choices. You maybe make some choices that aren't so good. You really want to avoid the guilt, because the guilt is just going to lead to that point where you're like, oh, the heck with it, I've just blown it. And then before you know it, you put 5 pounds on over the Christmas holiday. So no guilt, just learn from it and enjoy the holidays.
I love those tips. It makes it easy and approachable, and to know that, it's okay to still enjoy the things that we love and that
That's
are
right.
meaningful to us.
Right.
That's good to know, and I think good for people to hear as the holidays are coming up. So I have one last question for you, Debbie.
Sure.
What is your favorite holiday food or meal?
Okay, so I love broccoli casserole, broccoli cheese casserole, and I love cranberry sauce. So, you can see here, it's a very decadent looking plate. It's full of cheese, as I just talked about, there's lots of cheese on top of that. Turkey, I could take or leave, but give me a good broccoli cheese casserole and I could eat a lot of it. So I love that. And then on the right-hand side is a cranberry relish. So I grew up with canned jelly cranberry sauce, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But a few years ago, my sister-in-law brought a cranberry relish to dinner, and I love it. And so for me, like, they are the highlights of my holiday dinners.
Both of those look amazing. This whole talk has made my mouth water.
Right, it's
All
making
the
us
pictures.
hungry.
But thank you so much, Debbie, for coming. Thank you for tuning into DTV, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.